the number 5 seed Las Vegas Raiders are traveling here to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow and the 10-7 Cincinnati Bengals. It's a 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time start. It's going to be on NBC. It's going to be a big-time matchup. I cannot wait for it. Let's break down this game. Let's start off with the Raiders. Honestly, the Las Vegas Raiders, they're one of those teams who they have shown so much resiliency this year, and they have overcome so many obstacles. It's amazing that they are even still playing right now and in the postseason. They dealt with the issue that took place with John Gruden and the whole scrutiny behind that situation and how John Gruden had to step down. They dealt with Henry Ruggs and the fatal car crash that happened in Las Vegas and lost him, for the season. And somehow, some way, the Raiders are still standing at 10-7. They have overcome a lot this season. And I got to give a lot of credit to Derek Carr because Derek Carr has shown some incredible leadership for this Raiders team. I mean, for the season, Derek Carr got 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He's thrown for 4,804 passing yards. He's completing 68% of his passes. But in his 8-year career, Derek Carr has 193 total touchdown passes, 85 interceptions. He's completed 65% of his passes. He's a 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback. He led the Raiders to the postseason back in 2016, but he got injured and he wasn't able to play. But I just can't say enough about the leadership that Derek Carr has shown throughout the entire season. If this was any other quarterback, I don't believe the Raiders make the playoffs. But you saw Derek Carr in press conferences. He didn't throw John Gruden under the bus. He didn't throw Henry Ruggs under the bus. Showed leadership, and he is the reason why the Raiders are in this moment in the playoffs. You saw last week, going up against Justin Herbert, Derek Carr performed well in that game for the Raiders, and he was able to help them get into the postseason. In that game against the Raiders, Derek Carr, he went, where did he go? 20 of 36. He had 186 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I thought he made plays for the Raiders when necessary, and I don't think Derek Carr is a great quarterback. I think Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, I think they are all great quarterbacks, but I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback. And so before week 18, the way the matchups were lining up, it looked like the Bengals were going to have to play the Patriots in Wild Card Weekend. And I was talking to a lot of Bengal fans, and they were excited to go up against Mac Jones. And I said, in that matchup, the Bengals obviously would have the coaching advantage with Belichick over Zach Taylor. In this matchup, I had to let Bengal fans know all week, hey, Derek Carr can beat you. You can lose to Derek Carr. This ain't Mac Jones, okay? This ain't, David Mills. This is Derek Carr. He is a good NFL quarterback who can win a game in the playoffs on the road. And when I look at this Raiders team from a coaching perspective, Rich Bisciotti, this is a chance for him to prove to Davis that he is the head coach moving forward for the Raiders. I think this is a chance. If he can win a playoff game in Cincinnati and get the Raiders to the divisional round of the playoffs, it would prove to Davis, hey, I am the right coach for this team moving forward. I can lead them, in the right direction and possibly get back to a Super Bowl somewhere the Raiders haven't been in a very long time. So again, when I look at this Raiders team, I think the key for the Raiders is going to be able to run the football. They have to be able to run the football with Josh Jacobs. And on the season, the Raiders, they're ranked 28th in the NFL in total rushing yards per game. They rush for 95 rushing yards per game. And I believe in order for the Raiders to have a chance in this game, they need to run the football with Josh Jacobs. On the season, Josh Jacobs, he has 872 total rushing yards. He has 9 touchdowns. He's averaging over 4 yards per carry, 217 total carries on the season. He hasn't been healthy throughout the regular season, but last week against the Chargers, he had 26 carries for 132 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged over 5 yards per carry in that game. I think in order for the Raiders to pull off the upset against the Bengals, they're going to need that type of performance again from their running back in Josh Jacobs. If the Raiders can run the football with Jacobs and, not get into a shootout with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they give themselves an opportunity to win this game. Also, it's going to be key for the Raiders to get Darren Waller involved in the passing game. Darren Waller is their best player offensively. Like he's a playmaker. He's dynamic in the open field. It's going to be important for the Raiders to get Darren Waller involved in the offense. Now, earlier in the season, the Bengals and the Raiders, they faced off against each other. And in that game, Darren Waller, he played well against the Bengals. He had 7 receptions, 116 receiving yards. So it's important for that Bengals defense, Logan Wilson and, Jermaine Pratt, to be able to contain Waller in the passing game. You can't necessarily stop Waller because he's so great of a player. When you talk about best tight ends in the NFL, I look at Travis Kelce, I look at George Kittle. Darren Waller deserves to be in that conversation. He's a game changer. So it's important for the Raiders to get Darren Waller involved in their offense. The way this Raiders team wants to play, they want to get Hunter Renfrow involved in the passing game, get Darren Waller involved in the passing game, and they want to attack the middle of the field, where that's actually where the Bengals, play well at, and that's one of their strengths. Logan Wilson and Pratt, I think if they can do a good job at containing Waller and Renfrow in the middle of the field, I think that can help this Bengals defense. Now, I mentioned earlier about how the Raiders have to be able to run the football with Josh Jacobs. The problem is the Bengals, they're one of the best teams in the NFL at being able to stop the run. They're 5th in the NFL, and they only give up 102 total rushing yards per game. So can the Raiders run the football? But the Bengals, they're stout against the run. They're not so good against the pass. I don't believe the Bengals are good in the secondary. I think they can be had, in the secondary. But I don't know if the Raiders have the personnel that can expose the Bengals secondary. And that's one of my biggest issues, in this game for the Raiders. Now, in the passing game for the Raiders, they average 267 passing yards per game. That's ranked 6th in the NFL. But the Bengals, they actually, struggle in the passing game, again, with their secondary that's so, suspect. That secondary in the Bengals is suspect. Bengals are ranked 26th in the NFL with 248 passing yards given up per game. So if the Raiders have to pass the ball with Derek Carr, I think they can have some success against this Bengals secondary. I just don't know who's going to be that performer for the Raiders in the passing game. Like, is it going to be Hunter Renfrow? I mean, he's not a great NFL receiver. I think he's good, but he's not great. He has 103 receptions on the season, 9 touchdowns, over 1,000 receiving yards on the season. Renfrow is going to have to make some plays in the passing game for Derek Carr. Who, like I said, Waller, he's going to be important for the Raiders. Maybe Deshaun Jackson can have a blast from the past moment and have a big-time performance in this playoff game for the Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to need someone who can stretch the field offensively. And if they can get 2 or 3 big-time plays in the passing game, I think the Raiders give themselves a chance to be able to pull off the upset. But like I said, Derek Carr, he's not great, but he's good. And he's capable of winning a playoff game on the road in a hostile environment here in Cincinnati. Now, let's talk about the Bengals offense versus the Raiders defense. Last time these two teams faced off against each other, it was in week 11 in Las Vegas. The Bengals, they were able to have some success at running the football. This was the part of the season where we saw Joe Mixon have an important part in the Bengals offense. In that game against the Raiders in week 11, Joe Mixon, he had 30 carries. He had 123 rushing yards for 2 total touchdowns. He averaged over 4 yards per carry. And overall in that game, the Bengals had 159 total rushing yards. So the Bengals were able to run the football against that Raiders defense. So the Bengals and Raiders are both built differently as far as their strengths. The Bengals, they are stout against the run. The Raiders, they struggle to stop the run. So if Joe Mixon can get it going offensively for the Bengals, and this Bengals rushing attack can attack the Raiders front seven, that could be trouble for the Las Vegas Raiders in this football game. And I know week 11 was a long time ago. The Bengals beat the Raiders 32-13, but I don't think the score was a true indicator for how close this game was. But the Bengals, if they can run the football and the Raiders have to bring, 9 and 10 in the box, that could be trouble for the Raiders, because you have one-on-one coverage on the outside with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, 2 dynamic receivers for the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's going to be key. The Raiders have to be able to stop the run. 2 players who are going to be crucial for the Raiders in this game is going to be Ndakwe and Max Crosby. Crosby has to dominate this game against the Bengals. Last week against the Chargers, Crosby, he had a great game. He had 6 tackles, 2 sacks. So if he can dominate the Bengals offensive line, I think the Raiders have a chance. He's going to be important. Like, I don't believe the Bengals have a good offensive line. So if they can't block Crosby up front, he can wreck this game for the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Raiders will have a chance. I think the Bengals have dynamic playmakers, in Jamar Chase, in T. Higgins. They got Tyler Boyd in the slot. Uzama is a nice tight end in this system. Bengals got playmakers all over the field, and I think they are the more talented team in this matchup. But the Bengals struggle when it comes to their offensive line. They got one of the worst O-lines in the NFL, and that's going to be key in this game. Can they protect Joe Burrow? Because if they can protect Joe Burrow and get the ball to their playmakers, I think the Bengals can pull away in this game and win this game. Let's talk about Joe Burrow and how great of a quarterback he is. For the season, Joe Burrow, he has 34 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He has 4,611 total passing yards this season. He's completing 70% of his passes. That is a league best. So Joe Burrow is one of those quarterbacks who plays well in big-time games. He's one of the best young quarterbacks we have in the NFL. I said on Tuesday's show that I believe Patrick Mahomes is in a league of his own. After Patrick Mahomes, 1A and 1B is Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. And if Deshaun Watson is playing, I believe he deserves to be in that conversation as well. I love Kyler Murray. I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's great in his own way. I love Josh Allen as well. Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback, but I believe that Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are right underneath Patrick Mahomes when it comes to young quarterbacks in the NFL. And again, Deshaun Watson, if he's available to play as well. But Joe Burrow, he has the intangibles that you need to be an elite quarterback in the NFL who can lead you on a Super Bowl run. And he plays well in big games. This is Joe Burrow in his career in college and in the NFL in big games. He's 6-0. He has 2,669 total passing yards. He averages 445 passing yards per game in those big games. And he's has 27 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in big games in his collegiate career and his NFL career so far. So Burrow plays well when the lights are at its brightest, and that's what you need in the playoffs if you want to be able to win a playoff matchup, and I think Joe Burrow is going to have an opportunity to make some plays in the passing game for the Bengals. You saw late in the season, Burrow had some big-time performances against the Ravens and the Chiefs in 2 big-time games that the Bengals needed to win the AFC North. So he's a big-time performer, and for whatever reason, in these big-time moments, he doesn't get rattled. I saw a few years ago, Josh Allen. He was going up against Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. It was his first time in the playoffs. I saw Josh Allen get rattled, and he started pressing, and he turned the football over in that game. I've never seen Joe Burrow get rattled. I've always seen Burrow make the right plays that are necessary for the Bengals to be able to win games. And he's a big-time performer. He is clutch. And, when you look at longest droughts in the NFL, like as far as being able to win a playoff game, the Bengals have the longest drought when it comes to winning a playoff game in the NFL. They haven't won a playoff game in 30 years. The last playoff win for the Bengals was in 1990. So you have a quarterback like Joe Burrow at the helm. I think Bengal fans should feel confident about their Bengals being able to overcome that hurdle and finally win a playoff game. It's going to be a big-time matchup, Rich Bisciotti versus Zach Taylor. I want to see if Zach Taylor, from a head coaching perspective, can make the right decisions in a playoff game for the Bengals. Bengal fans, they've had their questions about Zach Taylor and whether or not it's the talent that has helped Zach Taylor have success this year as the Bengals head coach. Is it the talent? Is it, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Burrow? Or is Zach Taylor a pretty good head coach in the NFL? I think we're going to get our answer Saturday afternoon in Paul Brown Stadium, because in the playoffs, you need your coach to make great decisions for your team to be able to win playoff games. So even if you have a great talented squad, there are moments in playoff games where head coaches have to make certain decisions to help their football team win games. I want to see if Zach Taylor can make those decisions and make the right decisions in those moments. But Derek Carr versus Joe Burrow, it doesn't get much better than this when it comes to playoff matchups and quarterbacks. I think the Bengals have the pressure in this game to win the game. Like, all the pressure is on the Cincinnati Bengals. I feel like the Raiders are playing with house money. They have overachieved this season because of the obstacles that they had to overcome. So they playing with house money. And if we get into a late game situation, I think the Raiders can pull off the upset. It's going to be cold here in Cincinnati, and I think that is advantage Raiders. It's not going to be, warm weather. It's going to be cold here in Cincinnati, 31 degrees. Earlier this week on the forecast, there were chances for snow flurries, but it's going to be clear Saturday afternoon here in Cincinnati. So I think the Raiders have an opportunity to pull it off the upset. I think the Bengals defensively, they have the pieces that can stop this Raiders offense. Jesse Bates, he's one of the best safeties in the NFL. And I think if you have Jesse Bates playing at a high level and he's coming up and stuffing the run and stopping Josh Jacobs from getting it going, I think that can really help the Bengals in this game. And I look at their personnel, again, I don't really believe in the Bengals secondary. I think they can be had. I don't really like Eli Apple and Mike Hilton. I think they can be had in the secondary. But I just don't know, again, if the Raiders have the personnel to be able to do that. I like the Bengals safeties. Von Miller and Bates are big time. I just don't like Apple, you know, and Hilton and, you know, Flowers. I just don't know. I don't know. I got my questions about, you know, these Bengals players in their secondary. But again, we'll see if the Raiders can take advantage of their suspect secondary. Again, the Raiders, if they can run the football, they have a chance. But the Bengals are one of the best teams in the NFL at being able to stop the run. And on the flip side, if they can run the football with Joe Mixon, they can have some success. But the Raiders, they struggle at being able to stop the run. The Bengals are the more talented team. They are the better team. But y'all know I live here in Cincinnati. Bengal fans, they call me a hater. And so I'm going to roll with Derek Carr to beat Joe Burrow here, Cincinnati, at Paul Brown Stadium, Saturday afternoon. I'm rolling with the Las Vegas Raiders to upset the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Raiders have overachieved this season. They have shown significant resilience all year long. I think the train continues to keep turning for the Raiders. I got the Raiders beating the Cincinnati Bengals here at Paul Brown Stadium, 24-21. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a great matchup between the quarterbacks, but I'm rolling with Derek Carr over Joe Burrow. I got Derek Carr 24, Joe Burrow 21, and I think the Bengals drought of not being able to win a playoff game will continue, and Bengal fans will unfortunately go home disappointed because the Bengals aren't going to be able to get it done. I think the Raiders are playing with house money. I think Derek Carr smells blood, and I think Derek Carr is going to perform well in his first playoff game action. But I think Joe Burrow is going to play well as well. I just think the Raiders are going to kick a walk-off field goal and win this game at Paul Brown Stadium Saturday afternoon. It's the first game of Wild Card Weekend. It's going to be a big-time matchup. But Bengal fans, I know you guys think I'm a hater, and you damn sure going to believe I'm a hater after this. Raiders 24, Bengals 21.